Are you just trying to show everybody how many cushions we have?
No, I want to make it look cozy.
Okay, we're starting the episode with violence. I will destroy all your favorite books.
Destroy all my favorite books?
Yes. I'm not kissing you. You have all that lipstick.
No. Alrighty, guys, welcome to our book recommendations tag. Basically, it's a million different questions. You have to choose one book for like each question, a book that you would ultimately recommend. So I thought it'd be fun to do with you. I got a whole stack. It's a big stack. It's a big stack of books.
We're not playing Jenga.
No, I'm gonna keep it over here. I'm gonna keep it over here. I was just showing the people. People like book stacks, all right? Look.
Oh my God.
Thumbnail.
A book you tell people is your favorite. You can probably guess this one for me.
Ender's Game.
No. Actually, that's pretty close. So it actually would be either Ender's Game or Foundation by Isaac Asimov. It's one of the first books that when I started branching out and started reading science fiction and stuff like that, which is what originally got me into books, Foundation and Ender's Game were the first books that kind of blew my mind, and that's kind of what got me into reading. So mostly Foundation by Isaac Asimov.
I wanted to go a little different here. I know we've talked about this book on the channel, but we've never actually expressed how much I absolutely love this book. It is a newer book, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I absolutely love this novel, read it in 2022, fell in love, became one of my all-time favorite books. Fantastic novel about a girl who makes a deal with the devil and she gets to live forever. The catch is...
she does nothing.
He doesn't like this book as much as I do. But the catch is that people forget about her the moment they look away from her, which I feel like he forgot about this book the moment he finished it. So
no, that's not true. A book that is your guilty pleasure. For me, I would actually have to say that it's probably, I started out my...
Fourth Wing.
No. That one's just a pleasure.
That's just a pleasure. Oh my God.
Actually, I would have to say that for me, my guilty pleasures would probably be the first books that I started out reading. I've mentioned before that what I started reading was like the Warcraft books, the Halo books. And I think I got into reading by reading guilty pleasures, and maybe that's what really did it for me, but also because I was just invested in those universes because of the video games and stuff like that, so it was easy for me. But I still remember them super fondly, and in fact, sometimes I think, man, I should reread some of those books just for fun. But then I realized, like, damn, there's so many other books that I really need to read. Do I really have the time to go back and read 14 Warcraft books?
My guilty pleasures, definitely been lately, the past few years, the Bridgerton novels. So this one is The Duke and I, which is the first book, which is obviously the basis of the first season of Bridgerton on Netflix. I know a lot of people have issues with these because they're so outdated and old-fashioned. However, I kind of love that. I really like Julia Quinn's style of writing, and I read one of these every February just to, you know, make my heart happy. And they're pretty much each one has been a different like romance trope, like the fake dating, the Cinderella story, things like that.
A book everyone loved, but you didn't. But I'm just gonna put in here every single Hemingway book. Can't get into them, don't like them. I read The Sun Also Rises, and I feel like I got less out of that book than I got out of Fourth Wing. I don't know what it is. Maybe there's something wrong with me, or maybe these books are just extremely overrated, or maybe they did something new, but they did it something new 90 years ago, and we're just past that.
That's valid. I feel that a little bit too. Like, I feel like at this point, the only reason I read Hemingway in college and the only reason I kind of liked it was because of the style of writing, not because the books were in any way intriguing or the plot lines in any way exciting. So this one is kind of out of left field, but I remember this book going pretty much viral, and then the series, was it on Hulu, Netflix? I don't remember, HBO, it doesn't matter. Liane Moriarty, 9 Perfect Strangers. I picked this one out specifically because Liane Moriarty is one of my favorite authors. Between Big Little Lies, The Husband's Secret, The Hypnotist Love Story, there's so many of her novels that I absolutely love. They're typically those family dramas that are a little bit of a thriller, a little bit of, you know, mystery in there, but she usually gives such a great ending or a great twist at the end that's just wow. 9 Perfect Strangers did absolutely nothing for me, and everyone was reading this book and everyone was watching the series, and we both read the book and we both watched the series.
I can't do those books. I just don't care about people's personal problems enough.
Yeah.
And that's all it was.
I understand.
It was 9 strangers and their personal problems. It's like, everybody's got problems. I don't care about yours that much.
Usually her novels is like the different stories of people, but then you find out that this person was the person who actually killed that person from the other family and things like that. That's like, wow, that's so entertaining and so intriguing. This book did nothing for me. It did nothing for him either.
All right, next up, a book you read the fastest. For this one, actually, yeah.
So, The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I have read books quickly. And back in my heyday in middle school and in high school, I could get through a book in 2 days. Now, you know, between making dinner and cleaning the house and working my job and doing the laundry and making the bed and, you know, getting ready for everything else, it's very hard to find time to read. I started reading this one, and it's not to say it's like literary, you know, gold or anything, but I started reading this book one night, and it was 2 a.m, and I had pretty much finished it. I didn't stop until I finished it. I finished it in like 5 hours. Granted, it's not that long of a book, and it wasn't a very complex plot, but it was so good. It was so fun that, yeah, I read this probably the fastest book I've ever read.
The book I've read the fastest. Okay, this one's actually, I don't think I've ever actually talked to you about this book, but American Sniper.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, I have. I've read this book. This book, I read it, I think, within 1 day. It was also not that long, but it's also a book that just moves so quickly. He did a lot in his life. He had a very eventful life, and he's just going through the main hits. And he's just boom, 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 boom. Especially for someone like me, especially for someone in my audience. Yeah, it's stuff that's gonna grab you. It's stuff that you're gonna find interesting. And so, yeah, I could get through that book. I didn't have to stop listening all day because every 2 minutes, something new is happening. Something new is getting thrown at you. And it's just super entertaining. A book that deserves more hype.
I chose Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult. This book came out in like 2022, and I didn't hear too many people talking about it. I've always loved Jodi Picoult. Some of her books are hits and misses for me. But this one was centered around the global pandemic, COVID-19, set in that time period, which not a lot of books have done. So I thought this one was like really special and really different. It has such a huge mind-twisting plot twist at the end, well, not at the end, like 3/4 in, that just completely changed the course of the rest of the novel, and just, it was mind-blowing. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, and this was a 5-star for me. This book impacted me deeply.
Right. Book series that deserves more hype, 3 Body Problem. The creators of the Game of Thrones series are literally making a Netflix series about it, and yet no one has read this book, which is also kind of similar to Game of Thrones and the Song of Ice and Fire. Not that many people had really read that series until the first season of Game of Thrones came out.
So maybe it'll happen.
But it was kind of interesting that, yeah, these producers, or, you know, these creators, they really do go after something that is maybe not that well known, but is probably one of the best in the genre. All right, a book that is becoming a movie or a TV show.
I'm cheating here because I chose Wicked by Gregory Maguire, which is the ultimate fan fiction of all time. It is, you know, Wicked. If y'all know the story of the Wizard of Oz, this is the most famous fan fiction of all time, where Gregory Maguire took the story of the Wicked Witch of the West and kind of flipped it and gave her an origin story that really makes you kind of empathize with her and makes her not as big of a villain as you might have thought and you saw in The Wizard of Oz. However, the reason I say I'm cheating is because I didn't like this book. But Wicked the musical on Broadway, since 2004, since the musical came out, has always just been a huge part of my life, of my personality. So the fact that Wicked the musical is finally becoming a movie musical and coming out Thanksgiving of this year, 2024, I had to include this one. I went into this book years ago with such high hopes because I loved Wicked the musical so much, but this book, it's a little too dark for me. It's a little really depressing and really sad, whereas the musical version of this book kind of just sparkles it. Wicked the musical, the movie, is finally coming out. Finally. After 20 years. So anyway. Your turn.
3 Body Problem.
Oh my God.
A book you have read the most.
Like reread?
Yeah.
I hate to bring up Harry Potter yet again because we all know Harry Potter is literally a pillar of my personality, but specifically Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This copy is literally from like 2002. You can see all of my Crayola crayon marks and my Crayola marker marks on it. This is literally like falling apart. I barely open this book anymore just because I'm afraid it's going to break. But I have read this copy of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets more than any book ever. Why Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets as opposed to all the other 6 novels, you ask? Because this one's the best. Followed closely by Goblet of Fire.
American Sniper.
You've read that book like
yeah,
times?
I actually can't think of a lot of books that I've read more than twice.
Books,
I don't really reread books, but I think American Sniper, I read it twice.
So that counts.
2 years later, after reading it the first time, I remember how cool of a ride it was. So I just picked it up again. And again, it's such a short book that I was like, yeah, I can do this again. I could do this in 2 more days and reread it. And yeah, I didn't regret it at all. It was amazing.
It's hard because there's so many books, especially now that we're, reviewing books and we want to start a channel. Like,
yeah, you don't want to reread something.
We want to read more books. We want to read the next new thing. But sometimes it's nice. Like, I look back on all these piles of books here and I'm like, I've only read them once. Like, I wish like I had all the infinite time in the world to just...
Yeah. A book from a genre you don't typically read.
I never read nonfiction. However, I did read Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights, his memoir. Fantastic. And I'm not even going to recommend you guys read the book. I recommend listening to the audiobook because how are you not going to listen to Matthew McConaughey read his own book about his life and just listen to all right.
Yeah, he does read the whole thing just like that. Actually.
Oh, it's fantastic, the audiobook. I have the physical book just because I enjoyed it so much and I love it and I want it as, as we say, a trophy for my shelf. But also he has a lot of pictures in here that I enjoyed looking through. Yeah.
I listened to the audiobook. I never actually read it. It's kind of crazy that it has that kind of stuff in it.
Yeah, look,
it's
and
pretty
like
cool.
little post-it notes that he has and stuff like that. So I highly recommend this book. If you're gonna ever read a memoir, this one is just uplifting, inspirational, and fun. Like, do it. Just do it. Again, Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey. All right.
A book from a genre you don't typically read. The River We Remember. This is actually a book I recently read. I don't actually read a lot of crime, drama, thriller, mysteries. I don't really read that. Like the true crime genre is not something I'm really into. This book is not actually true crime. It's just, like I said, a murder mystery drama. But I actually really enjoyed this one simply because of the characters. The characters felt like real people, like really strong characters. And that's why I actually was willing to get invested into the struggle that they were going through. So The River We Remember, I think it's actually a very recent book. So yeah, check it out. I think it's probably the best crime murder mystery that I've read. A book that deserves all the hype it gets.
The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Everyone has seen this book. Everyone has pretty much read this book. And it's because it's that good. I know you've never read it. No. Maybe you should read it, just read the hype. Do I think you're gonna like it? No. So maybe not. But this is a breath of fresh air. This is one of those books that you just don't see coming. Completely in its own league, completely unique plot, just fantastic. I don't want to say anything of what it's about if you haven't read it, because if you haven't read it, why haven't you? Just do it. Just believe the hype, just do it.
A book that deserves all the hype it gets. The Stormlight Archive. I'm not even gonna say the author because I say it every single time. I'm not gonna do it. But in all honesty, it is, I think, the current Game of Thrones. Like, it is currently the biggest fantasy series that everyone's talking about. They have to be that good for that many people, including myself, to want to read these fantasy books that are each Bible-sized, essentially. A book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation.
This is actually really hard because everyone is so different. There's people who will only read romance, people who will only read sci-fi, people who will only read fantasy. So I thought about it a little bit and I'm like, you know what, let's go back to basics. something that pretty much everyone enjoys typically will be like a mystery psychological thriller. A lot of people
I think
will
mine's
like
better.
that. So I went back to the basics. Let's go to the OG. Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. Men, women, romance people, fantasy people, sci-fi people, everyone will like this novel. Basically, it's one of those books where do you believe the main character? Is she actually speaking the truth? Or is she completely out of her damn mind? One of those fantastic psychological thrillers that will leave you second guessing the main character all the way to the end. And the movie is just as good.
I haven't seen the movie.
Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
You love Emily Blunt.
I like the Blunt. Mine's better. I was actually gonna recommend Gentleman from Moscow because I just feel like it's a very general book. But yeah, some people do that. It has a lot of history. It has a lot of historical references. A lot of, like.
I love historical fiction.
Yeah, but it gets deep in there, man. So I'm not gonna recommend that one. Instead, I would recommend The Men Called Uva. Just because that one is actually like if a book could win an Oscar, it probably would be that one.
I said we were gonna try to do this challenge with an additional challenge of not mentioning books we've already mentioned on this channel. He did not listen to me. Someone does not follow directions.
Books that have your favorite characters or character.
Enough said.
Game of Thrones.
That's fair. So the two probably biggest fantasy universes that ever been, except for, I guess the other third won't be like Lord of the Rings or something.
Yeah. A book you wish you lived in. I was wondering why that stack there was so short. It's because Harry Potter is like 5 of the answers.
What other answer am I supposed to give?
Right, I get it.
What other book series do I want to live in?
Actually,
what?
I put Percy Jackson.
There you go.
Yeah. That one would actually be, I think it would be cooler. Yeah, I just like Greek mythology and stuff like that, and it's always
very
popping
fair.
up.
That actually makes me love you.
All right, a book you thought you would hate, but you ended up loving. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
Oh my god, I thought we said we were only going to talk about books we haven't talked about yet. Are you about to say Fourth Wing?
Yeah, but okay, I'll change it to Mother-Daughter Murder Night.
All right, fine.
Or A Southern Book Club's Guide to Killing Vampires. That one was also, I really had no expectations at all for that book. And I actually
really liked that one.
That one I really liked.
Again, all three of them we've spoken on this channel. I'm gonna go with an oldie, but always a goodie, out of left field here. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. When I first picked up this book, I thought it was going to be too involved, too intricate, gonna go over my head. Thought it was gonna be too boring and just, I wasn't gonna get it. I read this back in high school. I was a senior in high school and I remember absolutely being enthralled. This has a little bit of everything. It does have a little bit of steam. It does have a lot of corruption. It feels like James Bond mixed with some crazy heist movie. This book literally has everything. It's a little dark, it's a little twisted. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson.
A book that made you cry.
You go.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Man Called Uva. Honestly, I have to say, there's only 2 books that ever made me cry, and it was Gentleman in Moscow and Man Called Uva. That's it. I can't think of any other one that made me cry. Oh, the Steve Jobs biography.
Really?
Yeah, at the very end, because he dies at the end of it. He died in real life. Spoiler alert, Steve Jobs has been dead for like 10 years.
Yeah. Wow, okay. I'm gonna go a little more basic here. Who didn't cry reading The Fault in Our Stars? If you've never read A Fault in Our Stars by John Green, you just need to pick it up right now and read it. This is also one of the books that I read the fastest. This one and The Housemaid. I remember I picked this book up. It was 11 o'clock at night. I was in high school and I picked it up just to read a little bit before I fell asleep. And I did not put it down until it was done. It was like 5 in the morning. So this also counts for books that I've read the fastest. One of my favorite books of all time. And the movie does do it justice, but still, read the book.
Number 15, a book you wish you could read for the first time. Okay, I'm gonna go. A Storm of Swords, which is the 3rd book in the Song of Ice and Fire, and that's the one with the really, really big twist, with the really, really big thing at the end. You know, that thing that's red, and there's a wedding, and then everybody blew their mind. And I wish I could read that one again, because I still remember when I was listening to that book and that scene started happening, and I literally got 2 minutes into it and had to rewind it because I couldn't believe what was happening is what, you know, the guy was saying in my ear was happening. So I had to put it back and listen to it again. And then I spent about a year or a year and a half waiting for the show to catch up to that, just so that I could sit in my little watch party and just sit next to the TV looking at the people instead.
Knowing what was going to happen.
That's pretty incredible. Yeah, so I wish I could read that book again just for that twist.
You've inspired me to say Harry Potter 7. I think just the anticipation, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, just the anticipation of being there at midnight, wanting to know how everything was going to end. Yeah, I wish I could kind of do that all again and read that conclusion to that epic series. That's definitely something I would love to relive.
Isn't that kind of like that is your favorite book of all time? You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to read it for the first time again, that's almost like asking you what's your favorite book of all time.
Not necessarily, because I think I prefer Chamber of Secrets and like Goblet of Fire to Deathly Hallows, but the anticipation of like, I need to know what's going to happen. I wish I could erase my brain of the Harry Potter ending and kind of relive that.
Let us know what books made you cry in the comments. What books made you cry and what books you would like to read again if you could, because that's probably the best booking recommendations. Booking.com.
Yeah.
Booking.com.
That's probably the best way to get reading recommendations. What books made you cry and what books would you read again if you could? So put those down in the comments so that maybe we find new things to read.
Alrighty guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us on this book date episode. Please make sure to subscribe to our channel if you like our content. We really hope you do. But we'll see you in the next one, and keep reading.